stop whatever you're doing for just a moment. Because if you found this video today, the timing may mean more than you realize. Not because of coincidence, but because sometimes the questions we spend our entire lives avoiding finally find us before we're ready. There is something that someone has never told you. A truth that has remained buried beneath years of fear, distraction, disappointment, and ordinary routines. Tonight, for the first time, we are going to explore a symbolic message inspired by the legendary figure known as ASHTAR SHERAN. A story that asks one extraordinary question. What if the life you've been living is only a fraction of who you truly are? This is not a prediction. It is not a command. It is a journey of imagination, self-reflection, and spiritual symbolism. Yet thousands of people have described moments that feel strangely familiar. Unexplained dreams, impossible coincidences, sudden awakenings, and an inner voice that refuses to disappear. If you've experienced anything like that, stay until the very end, because the final revelation changes everything that came before. And before we begin, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications if you enjoy thoughtful stories exploring consciousness, personal transformation, and symbolic spiritual journeys. Join thousands of curious minds across the United States, the United Kingdom, and around the world who come here searching not for easy answers, but for deeper questions. Now, let's begin. Imagine waking before sunrise with a strange certainty that today feels different. Nothing around you has changed. The same room, the same ceiling, the same sounds drifting through the window. Yet something inside refuses to accept that this day is ordinary. It feels as though an invisible page has turned somewhere beyond your awareness. Throughout your life there have been moments that seemed impossible to explain. Perhaps you walked into a place you had never visited and somehow knew exactly where every hallway led. Maybe you dreamed about someone you hadn't seen for years, only to receive a message from them the next morning. Perhaps there were numbers that repeated endlessly, places that seemed to call your attention without reason, or quiet instincts that later proved surprisingly accurate. Most people dismiss these experiences as coincidence. Others call them intuition. Some believe they are simply the remarkable patterns of the human mind, searching for meaning in a chaotic universe. But regardless of how they are interpreted, such experiences leave a question lingering long after logic has finished speaking. Why do some moments refuse to be forgotten? The story you are about to hear begins with a confession. Not the confession of a criminal or a politician, but the confession of someone who spent decades studying symbolic traditions, consciousness, ancient philosophies, and humanity's endless search for purpose. Near the end of his life, he reportedly wrote that the greatest secret was never hidden in governments, temples, or distant stars. The greatest secret was hidden inside ordinary people who had forgotten how extraordinary their own awareness could become. According to the story, he believed that humanity had become so focused on surviving each day that it stopped asking why it existed in the first place. Bills replaced wonder. Schedules replaced silence. Notifications replaced reflection. Little by little, people became strangers to themselves. Then came the line that changed everything. He wrote that if this message ever reached someone who had always felt different. Not better than others. Simply different. They should stop searching outside themselves for permission to become who they already were. That sentence spread quietly through small circles of spiritual discussion until someone attached the legendary name ASHTAR SHERAN to the message. Whether that connection was historical, symbolic, or entirely fictional has long been debated, and no one has ever proven its origin. Yet the story continued because it touched something universal. Not certainty. Hope. What if the reason you have always felt out of place was not because you were broken, but because you kept trying to fit into expectations that were never designed for you? What if every setback forced you to develop strengths you would never have discovered otherwise? Every rejection, every disappointment, every lonely night, every unanswered question. Perhaps they were not punishments. Perhaps they became the teachers that ordinary success could never provide. As the years passed, another layer of the story emerged. It claimed there were individuals scattered across the world who repeatedly experienced the same symbolic dreams. They described enormous skies filled with impossible colors, mountains glowing beneath unfamiliar constellations, oceans reflecting stars that did not belong to Earth, and voices that never introduced themselves, yet somehow felt deeply familiar. Psychologists might explain such dreams through memory, imagination, or subconscious processing. Spiritual thinkers often see them as metaphors for inner awakening. Regardless of interpretation, the dreams carried one common emotion, not fear, but recognition. As though the dreamer remembered something that could not quite be explained after waking. One woman from Scotland described dreaming about climbing an endless staircase made of light. Every step felt heavier than the last, until she reached a door unlike anything she had ever seen. Before opening it, a voice simply asked, "Are you finally ready to meet yourself?" She awoke crying, not because she understood the dream, but because it felt more real than the room around her. She never forgot it. A retired engineer in Texas described spending years dismissing similar experiences until a series of unlikely coincidences forced him to reconsider how little he truly understood about consciousness. He remained skeptical, yet curiosity slowly replaced certainty. Instead of searching for extraordinary beings, he began searching for extraordinary honesty within himself. The change transformed his relationships, his priorities, and the way he approached every conversation. Then, there was the teacher from London, who said she spent decades trying to become the person everyone expected her to be. Only after suffering complete burnout did she realize she had spent 40 years living according to borrowed definitions of success. She did not suddenly discover magical powers. She did not claim supernatural encounters. Instead, she discovered something both simpler and far more difficult: the courage to stop pretending. This is where the symbolic message attributed to ASHTAR SHERAN takes an unexpected turn. It does not ask you to escape the world. It asks you to see the world differently. It suggests that awakening is not about becoming someone new. It is about removing the layers that convinced you that you were never enough in the first place. But hidden within the old story was one sentence almost everyone overlooked. It read, "The final confession cannot be spoken until the listener has already begun remembering. No explanation followed. No definition was given. Only silence. And that silence became the greatest mystery of all. Because those who believed they understood the message often realized they had only reached its beginning. The real confession, the one that someone was supposedly ordered to reveal, had still not been spoken. And when it finally surfaced decades later, it would force every previous assumption to be questioned. The story claimed that the confession was never hidden in ancient temples, secret organizations, or distant stars. It had always been quietly woven into the events of your own life. Every unexpected setback, every relationship that ended, every opportunity that disappeared, and every unexplained coincidence formed pieces of a larger pattern that could only be recognized when looking backward. The symbolic teachings associated with ASHTAR SHERAN suggested that the greatest awakening begins when a person stops asking, "Why is this happening to me?" and starts asking, "What is this experience trying to teach me?" At first, nothing seems to change. The world remains the same, but your perspective begins to shift. You notice that your deepest pain often led you toward your greatest strength. The dreams you dismissed begin to feel like reflections of your subconscious, searching for meaning. The synchronicities become reminders to stay present rather than promises of certainty. Then comes the unexpected twist. The mysterious voice in the story finally reveals that no one was ever sent to rescue you, because you were never meant to wait for rescue. The truth about you was not that you possessed hidden supernatural powers. It was that you had unknowingly spent years giving away your own power by believing you needed someone else to reveal your purpose. The confession was never about becoming extraordinary overnight. It was about remembering that courage, compassion, resilience, and self-awareness had been quietly growing inside you all along. And just when it seems the mystery has been solved, one final sentence appears in the forgotten manuscript. The last door does not open when you discover the truth. It opens when you are willing to live it. In that moment, the journey changes forever, because the final revelation has yet to come.